I'm Ari Gross, the creator of Upkeep Year 2, and this is True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Ari Gross about his comic book Upkeep number 2 on Kickstarter. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Ari Gross resides in Toronto, Ontario, where he creates comics, plays piano, raises his kids, writes code, and is completely ignored by his cat Kirby. Ari's comics include the sci-fi one-shot Awakening, as well as shorts featured in comic anthologies including Don't Go Below from Fairytales from Mars, Chosen from Scott Snyder Presents Tales from the Cloakroom, I'm with the Bard from Might, Magic, and Monster-in-Laws, and most recently his ongoing series Wardens. His latest project continues the Upkeep series with issue number 2, and he's joined by collaborators artist Keder LeBeau, colorist Mariam Yasser, letterer Rob Jones, and editor Aubrey Lyn Jeppson. Upkeep number 2 continues the thrilling tale set in Toronto, Ontario. The story goes like this. It's year 2 of Adam and Yvonne's life in Garrison Manor, the magical mansion that grants its owners anything they desire. Join them as they confront a chilling new terror, trying to find affordable childcare. Also, murder. So without further ado, here's my chat with Ari Gross about his comic book Upkeep number 2 on Kickstarter. So Ari Gross, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate your time. Before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what are you reading today?
What am I reading today? Well, I'll give you one Big Two book and one other book that's just next to me. So I've been reading I think it's One World Under Doom, the Fantastic Four / Doctor Doom crossover. What if Doom ruled the world again? But this time everyone seemed to be really cool with it, and it wasn't doing any mind trickery. There was no Purple Man involved or anything. It was just, hey, here's a ruler. He convinced everyone he should be in charge. What do you do about that? I think that's an interesting premise. I think that Ryan North, who's leading this, is an exceptional writer and tackles these things with a great amount of cleverness, with a great amount of trying to figure out what this would actually entail and how people would react to it. He's very clever about that. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. I'm a little behind on those, but I've been writing a lot, so that's my reason. And the other book I have, which I'm about to read, is just sitting on my desk, is by Darcy van Poelgeest, also by Ian Bertram and Matt Hollingsworth. It's called Precious Metal. It is a prequel to Little Bird, which I read a few years ago and I really loved. Yeah, that's a Canadian book. It's published by Image, and I'm excited to get into it. So if anyone knows Little Bird, you'll want to know that I believe it's a prequel called Precious Metal, and I'm about to crack that open.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I had a chat with Darcy about that not too long ago, and even
nice.
ran into him at TCAF, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's where I picked this up. I was happy to see him there.
Nice, yeah. But we're talking about you, especially you're continuing your Upkeep series with issue number 2 on Kickstarter. So for those not familiar with this comic book series, how would you describe the story to someone?
So Upkeep is a modern horror / family drama. It follows the Lee Keller family, Adam Keller and his wife Fawn Lee, and their little son Tristan. First issue, they are living in a crappy apartment in Toronto, and they really want to afford a house, their dream house, or just any house, but they can't because real estate is insane, and it's just tough to buy a house. So they end up with this, what I call a magical mystery murder mansion, which is a house that gives them anything they want, absolutely anything that exists in the world, give them whatever, as long as the house gets fed once in a while. So it's sort of like a Little Shop of Horrors kind of take. I like to think of it as like Little Shop of Horrors meets the housing market. And the tagline I've got for it is, who would you kill for your dream home?
That's pretty timely. I think, as I mentioned last time in our conversation, a lot of people are facing a housing crisis, and this is going to the nth degree to resolve it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Darcy, actually, and he says, it sounds like a Vancouver book more than a Toronto book. And I was like, actually, I came up with the idea when I was staying in Vancouver. So it's you can pick whichever city you want. But yeah, it's specific in the sense that it's located in Toronto. But the issue is certainly not just for Toronto. It's a universal issue that's affecting a great many people. So I want to write a comic about it.
Yeah, and looking at the Kickstarter page for issue number 2, you tackle another issue that's addressing everyone today, and that's affordable daycare.
That's
So
right.
that's another big hurdle. So I wanted to ask you, though, although it's set in Toronto, do you think this storyline, these series, anyone could relate to it in any town across Canada?
I'd like to think that it's got broad appeal. Certainly, if you live in small town Canada where housing prices are different and maybe your daycare situation is quite different, you'd react to this differently. Definitely, if you live in one of the major cities, especially Toronto and Vancouver, which are, and I know Montreal's gotten more expensive, Halifax has gotten more expensive. I don't know so much about Edmonton and Calgary, although I know they've ticked up a bit. But really, like, Canada is a fairly, we love our outdoors and our wilderness, but just population wise, we're mostly an urban country. And with the bulk of people living in really a small number of cities. And I think that's, it's not the only reason why we have this housing crisis, but that's sort of conducive to that. It doesn't help. And I think a lot of people in Canada and outside, would find value in this. A year ago, or 2 years ago, I guess, I was in New York visiting my cousin. And just, when you walk around, you're like, I wonder how much this place costs. And you're like, I shouldn't have asked. That's just like, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Obviously, New York is New York, there's LA and all the major cities. But yeah, I'd like to think that this is a universal theme, especially when you go and are trying to move it on this issue from not just housing, like you said, but to daycare and trying to tell the story of what it means to be sort of, a young couple. These are a couple in their 30s, maybe not super young, with a kid. And what does it mean to like actually try to have a family and raise a family and have all the things that you feel like you're supposed to have, all the kind of normal stuff, but it's difficult. And what does it mean if you suddenly get this, this magical answer to these questions, but you have to pay a price for it? I wanted to have the story be kind of an immediate version of all the challenges that people have and all the trade-offs. It's one thing to say, great, I would love to live in any place, but what would you do for it?
I mean, this is a satire in the truest sense of the word. So I'm wondering, are there any specific messages you hope readers take away from this series? Is it just pure entertainment?
I hope that this helps people think about these issues a little bit. And I hope that people look at this couple and the way that they raise their kids. And so one of the other things about this comic is every issue is going to jump forward about 1 year. So Upkeep number 2, I'm also just calling Upkeep year 2, and Upkeep number 3, Upkeep year 3, and so on. So by the time, my goal is to do 10 to 20 issues of this. I have a arc in mind. I know how it's going to end. I don't have all the details worked out. I'm trying to keep that a little loose. But certainly I have the first arc, I have all the details, and the multi-year arc, I have a good amount of the details. And so I want people to get a sense of, so there's the idea that anything we get in our society as a gain, anything that's good for us, anything that benefits us, there's usually a cost to it. Whether it's environmental cost, a human cost. I went to the other day and I bought, shoes from, well, I won't say what retailer, but a pretty cheap retailer for my son. It was like $30 or something like that. And you're like, what does it take to make $30 shoes? Once you think about it a bit, you're like, maybe you don't want to know what it takes to make $30 shoes. The human cost, the difficulties that, in a fairly wealthy Western society, all the benefits, someone has to do that. Someone has to make that stuff for us. Someone has to do all the things that benefit us. And so I wanted to make that very immediate in Upkeep, where what does it mean that if to benefit from some magical mansion that gives you anything you want, you actually had to, take someone into the house and somehow get them into the basement, and that person's never going to be seen again, and you don't even know what goes on in the basement. So it's got the sense of trying to make immediate these sort of broad abstract issues. The costs that we put onto the world that aren't necessarily paid by us, what would it be if it had to be paid by you in the most immediate way?
I want to switch gears a wee bit and talk about your creative process. Were there any changes that you made comparing in the process of making the first issue to the second issue?
Well, I knew the story for the second issue pretty quickly after I did the first issue, or while I was writing the first issue. Usually when I'm writing one issue, I think, oh yeah, I know what I'm going to do for the issue after. Like it just kind of, I don't always write at the same time, but I get a lot of the ideas. So I hit the ground running pretty well for this one. In terms of the process, it's easier to work with the artist and the colorist because you've worked with them before. You know how they work, what to expect, what you have to make explicit, what you can leave a little open. So that's always good. I'm also trying to find just a different printer. Like the first time I printed this, I did a smaller run from a local printer, and then I decided to do a bigger run from an American printer, and now I'm trying to find another printer, Canadian printer. There's a few options. So there's always this sort of small kind of process improvement, this continuous improvement. Just because you've gone with someone like a printer or something for the last 2-3 times, that doesn't mean you're going to go with them again. You're still looking for if they fit your needs, if they're good to work with. Frankly, if they're on our side of the border, that helps a lot. All these little issues. So I try to not say, just because I did it one time, I'm going to do it exactly the same the next time. There's always tweaks, there's always changes. Even small things like the video for the Kickstarter video. For Upkeep #1, my video was 2 minutes long. This time it's 1 minute long. Is that an improvement? I think so. No one wants to watch a 2-minute video. People barely want to watch a 1-minute video. So you learn all these little things as you go forward. And it's not even like one big message. It's just 100 small learnings that you can then apply.
Right. Now, this series is being produced via Kickstarter. I want to get your opinion. How satisfied are you with that support that they give you?
So the platform of Kickstarter, and since I've started with it a few years ago, it's changed. I think it's improved just on usability as a person to create campaigns, and some of the very small changes that they've made I've kind of liked. The question is, after I did my last campaign for Upkeep #1, I swore that I would never do Kickstarter again. I was like, I can't take these campaigns. It's like basically begging people for money and then waiting until the last 48 hours until everyone suddenly decides, oh, I guess I should buy the thing that you've been talking to me about a month for. Like it's very emotionally draining to be in the position of like, hey, here's the thing. And, just kind of waiting to see a number go up. But I think this time, I think a lot of that's just sort of, your mental game and how many times you've done it before. This is going to be my 4th Kickstarter campaign. So, I'm not my first rodeo. I'm a little more confident. I'm a little more like, okay, well, if it's doing really badly in week 2 and 3, like not the end of the world. There's always a question about rewards you offer. That always changes too. But I think the big thing about Kickstarter, and the reason I came back to it, first is the familiarity. I've done it a few times, so I know how to do it. And the second is Kickstarter has a built-in audience, which is about a third of the people that backed my previous comics. To my surprise, I always wonder, like, is it just going to be friends and family? Is it just going to be people that I stop in the street and shove a thing in front of them? Do you have to know me personally to back this comic? And the answer is, for a third of backers, no, which is something that I'm not sure I would get if I went to a different platform. So I've done a lot of analysis of the data from the previous campaigns, and I came to the conclusion that, for as much as I'm like, I kind of hate the all or nothing Kickstarter thing, it's the nerve-wracking roller coaster. The fact that they take a chunk is also not amazing. Some platforms don't take any of the money. Kickstarter does. They have a fee. So, but I think it's worth it for the approximately 1/3 of extra backers you'll get, just because they're the biggest in the game, and that's where people who are looking to back comics go.
Right. Now, you mentioned rewards. Can you talk a little bit about what rewards you plan to give Kickstarter backers who will definitely back you up?
First rewards, obviously, are digital and physical copies of Upkeep #2. And I should mention all rewards come with a free digital copy of Upkeep #1, because I want people to read it and I want people to get caught up. I really want people to be reading the series as a continuous series. This isn't a one-off. You'll get a lot more out of #2, which I think is better than #1, just because I'd like it more. Maybe that's a recency bias on my part because I've been staring at it a lot. But aside from that, there's a catch-up tier where you can get a physical copy of Upkeep #1 as well. There's a bookmark, which has various panels from the comic, which I actually think is pretty fun. There's 4 trading cards. So every of the comics that I've done for the past, well, for all my campaigns that I've done for Kickstarter, I've been making these trading cards. I was one of those kids who obsessively collected the Marvel, DC, but mostly the Marvel trading cards from the 90s. I love them. And people like them. They like the idea of like the extra text on the back. It's a little extra flavor, something you won't necessarily get in the comic. It gives you a chance to be a little cheeky or a little sassy. It gives you a chance to write something that's like a little funny in a way that it doesn't necessarily match the tone of the comic, but it's just fun to write. So there's that, 4 characters. There's a coloring book, which is the first time I'm doing this. The coloring book is basically the inks for the comic plus a couple other pages. So you can actually color the comic, which is something that I haven't seen a lot of people or basically anybody do. Just sort of came to me while I was staring at the inks, and I was like, can I make this a reward? So we'll see how that does. We'll see if people are interested in that. And this is all continuous improvement and continuous experimentation. So I'm curious to see what people's reactions are to them. And then there's backer page recognition. I'll put your name in the backer page, I'll sign your comic. And finally, get drawn into Upkeep #3. So there's a few panels in Upkeep #3 have in mind in particular for if people want to be drawn into them. That's sort of the highest tier. And that's another question you have a lot with Kickstarter is, how to price things, because you want to give, interesting enough rewards at the high tier that some people will get them, even if it's, just your mom or that kind of thing. And last time my highest tier was $50, but I noticed some people just gave bonus support. So I thought maybe there's something that I can do to actually provide an interesting or desirable reward for something that's higher than sort of the $50 or $75 tier.
Oh, lots of good
that's
stuff
what I'm
there.
offering.
That's great. That's great. So beyond this podcast, I'm wondering if you could talk a wee bit about the plans you have in store to promote the book.
That's always the question, isn't it? So I've got a few podcasts that I'm going on. I think there's 4 or 5. I'm not overdoing it. I'm basically, at this point, because this isn't my first time, I've been on a few podcasts and I'm trying to sort of pick the ones that I like. Because frankly, podcasts actually don't get you that much reach.
Sorry,
they're great to do.
Try.
Hey, we all try, yeah. But that's just the fact of the matter. Listening to an indie comics podcast is a super niche thing, and we do it because we love it. Because I love talking to people. Because I like the community. Because every time if you get 1 or 2 people, that's great. That's 1 or 2 more people that are backing your book. But that's not going to get hundreds of people. Not that I'm expecting hundreds of people, but I would love them. So one thing I am doing, I'm going to be at Gotham Central in Mississauga for their summer bash. So that's just before the campaign starts. So I'm going to be selling comics there. And I'm going to be basically hard selling every single person I see on Upkeep too, getting them to, I've got a little toque NFC thing that you can tap your phone next to and it'll take you to the Kickstarter page. It's going to be a tap the toque affair. By the time everyone listens to this, maybe you will have already tapped the toque. Yeah, I'm just going to try to speak to people in person because I find that's the way that I really get the most interest for this. Digital is difficult. You're screaming into the void half the time. I'm on Instagram, but I'm not on the other social media, except for Discord, which I'll be promoting in certain channels there. But I just couldn't take social media, so I kind of got off that, and I'm happier for it. But that also means that there's a bit less reach, but that's okay. That's a choice that I'm, sort of made in my life, and I'm happy with it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I also dropped some of the flyers off at some local comic stores. I'm emailing some of the store owners and stuff about that, see if they have any interest in either promoting or maybe get an advanced copy or something. So we'll see. Yeah, promoting indie comics is a difficult thing, and there's no easy, obvious way to do it, but you just sort of do everything you can and you hope something sticks.
Right, exactly. We've been talking about Upkeep 1 and 2. Do you have any other up-and-coming projects that you can talk about?
I do. I have 2 projects that I'm extremely excited about. One is Wardens 2. So last year I released Upkeep 1 and another comic called Wardens, number 1. Wardens is twice the size of Upkeep. It's 44 pages, or a little less than twice the size. And Wardens 2 will be the same amount. Wardens takes place in the ward, what is St. John's Ward, formerly University to Young, about Queen to College. It used to be the poor immigrant working class neighborhood, one of Toronto's first real immigrant neighborhoods. This comic takes place in 1926. The cast reflects the individuals that live in the neighborhood, so primarily Jewish, Chinese, Black, some Italian. It's very, very Jewish. It's got a lot of Yiddish in it, but it's not exclusively Jewish. The main antagonist is this collection of possessed clothes called the Shmata, this sort of murderous wardrobe, which I've gotten really, really into seeing my artist's drawings for, because my artist is amazing. The artist for Wardens is Rob Jennings, who's out in Nova Scotia, out in Cape Breton. So I'm excited for that to come out soon. I thought that was going to come out before Upkeep, but it's literally one guy doing all the work for it. So sometimes that takes a little longer, and it's also twice the length of Upkeep. Look for that later this year. And the other project that I'm extremely excited about, which I just got an artist for, she's just starting the work on it, is a 64-page one-shot. The closest thing I'm going to make to something that's movie or cinematic, I think, called Nutcracker. It's a Christmas revenge, sort of feminist horror satire about a nutcracker that cracks people's nuts. So it's, the title sells it. Hopefully the art will also sell it. I've gotten the character art back, and it's basically based around individuals early 20-somethings on a university campus. There's a girl, her best friend died under mysterious circumstances, and unbeknownst to her comes back to possess a creepy nutcracker. And terrifying things happen, mostly involving cracking nuts.
Oh my, okay. Say no more,
really
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot on the go. I'm wondering, where do you recommend people go online to find out about your current and your future projects?
So you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at College Street Comics, college_ST_comics. And you can go to my personal website as well, arigross.ca, arigross.ca. Yeah, I think those are the two best places. And if you find me somewhere else, I'm on a couple of Discord servers here and there. If you see my name and you've heard this podcast, feel free to reach out. I'm very friendly. I won't bite, and I will be glad to talk with anyone about, well, anything, mostly comics related.
Great. Well, Ari, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Just that, I mean, comics are insanely fun to do. I've started writing them in 2020, so I'm sort of new to creative writing, but I work with an amazing editor, Aubrey Lyn Jeppson, and she's, between working with her and working with all the artists and everything, I've learned a lot about doing them the past few years. They're also insanely expensive to make. It's one of those things, if you're writing comics, you're not drawing them, it's not a poor man's game. These things cost a lot to create. I encourage people to do comics and get into them, but also I appreciate the fact that it's the kind of thing that I can only do because I have basically a day job and I'm not just spending all my time. It's not like I'm in my 20s again, just like living off ramen and, chips or whatever and saving all my money. I've got kids and stuff like that. So it's a challenge to do, to manage, but if you can do it and if you can find a way to balance your work, watch your spending, and make time every single day to write, and I can't emphasize that enough. If anybody wants to write or create, you got to do it basically every day. Consistency is more important than anything else. If you can do that, then you can tell the story you want to, because no one else is going to tell that story for you but you.
Thanks to Ari for the chat. You can discover more about Ari Gross online at arigross.ca and on Instagram at instagram.com/college_ST_comics. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations and discover how creators are making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.